glad you're all here. Glad you're here to support the program. Obviously, we are, on day 11 of preseason camp, which is pretty cool. The guys did a great job up to this point in time. We've utilized the grass fields. We've put them in a lot of different situations, really challenged them a lot of different ways. There's 64 new guys on this team, as you all know. So with that comes a lot of time that we got to spend together off the field as well. I think we've done a great job in that in the dorm rooms for the first 11 days, playing pool down in the basement of that. We got PlayStations in the locker room, so these guys have a chance to assemble and hang out and get to know each other. Every night we do a name game. We did, during the winter and spring, over 500 hours of community service as well, just so they spent time off the field and in this community and got to realize what this community was really all about long before they ever even stepped on the field and put on the pads for spring. So there's been a lot of really positive momentum at this moment, and there's an ability, we understand the ability to bring 64 new guys together quickly. It has to be our main objective, and that's exactly what it's been up to this point. So on the field it's been great, off the field it's even been better, and I'm looking forward to getting the season started.
What's the value?
That wasn't bad for not
good, yeah. Say off the cuff.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. You need a teleprompter next time. Yeah. What's the value of the guys you brought with you, player-wise, from Holy Cross, in terms of establishing your culture, big picture, and then small picture, just how you like drills run, how you like things handled?
Yeah, so our practice flow, for those that have been there, is just a little bit different than maybe some other places, and none's better or worse than the other. Just the way we do it is in sort of small bursts. There's 5 to 7 minute periods. We don't go to 10 to 15, so just the flow of a practice takes a little bit of getting used to. So having at least 4 guys that know where to go next is sometimes half the battle. But as far as them being here, I think, obviously there's differences between the way the program was run the past few years and the way we're doing it now, and the way the coaches are communicating is just a little bit different. And I think with that, when you leave those first meetings, I'm sure there's a lot of questions from the guys that are here or guys that have come from other places that aren't used to that type of, communication. And a lot of it is not about the meeting, it's about the meeting after the meeting. And when you have 64 new guys that don't know who you are, it takes a minute for them to be like, what is he even talking about? Is this real? Is this not real? And to have 4 or 5 of our own guys there that have been through a system with us for 4 or 5 years certainly allows our voice to be echoed when that meeting's over, when they start to assemble in small groups and wonder what exactly is going on. It's reassuring to have people that have been in a program like ours at Holy Cross, and now the program we're bringing here and bringing them both together. It's neat. There has to be some gaps of their bridge, not just by coaches, and that's the luxury of having those guys with you.
And along those same lines, the coaches for you, how valuable is that you're not sort of training a new staff in your way, that continuity for you?
Yeah, that's the same thing. You're in the same boat there. Just the way you flow practice, the way you do things. But then it's really important to have a lot of guys from a lot of different places, successful programs, come together and put their own stamp on this program. So there's a lot of things we're doing that came from Coach Hemphill at Duke, or came from Coach Daniels in the places he's been, or came from Coach Harper in the places he's been. So this is not just, hey, I'm sitting there and making these things up and building this. We're building this program together. So having our guys at the backbone of it to understand, here's sort of the negotiables and non-negotiables, and then after we find those negotiables, let's talk about how we can do it better. And that's what's, to me, pretty neat to watch that combination of all those different guys coming from all those different places for one common goal.
And it's the career you've chosen, but moving around, things like that, does it help you and yours that you've got some familiar phrases, some people you've been with, lived with, to be with you?
Yeah, having familiar faces is always a good thing. I don't think that that's ever necessarily a bad thing. I think that, for us to come down here, and again, it's the same thing. We leave a staff meeting, well, those guys go off and start talking again, and maybe there's something that they're clarifying for them or just reassuring them with of how this will work in the long run. You're just getting the first bit of it now, but in the long run, there's a little more that comes with it, and here's the why. And I think those are important messages to be spread.
Also a lot of new players, a lot of new coaches, especially another member of the Chesney family out there on the coaching as well. Just tell me how that's been having your dad out there.
That's been great. He's been with me every step of the way here. He actually came with me to Delaware Valley College for a year, my first year as a defensive coordinator in 2002, and then he came with me to King's College, and then he went back into high school coaching, so he wasn't available. And then when I became a head coach up at Division III school in Newport, Rhode Island, he came along with me, and my little brother did as well, and we, all three of us were part of that staff. So to have him, a guy that you just could, obviously, that I could trust with everything, it's hard to find that, and we have some of those guys on staff that I think we all trust each other and believe in each other, and I think we're growing. That trust is continuing to grow. But who can you trust more than your own father? So it's pretty great to have him with it, and he's a hell of a football coach, so it's fun to have him here with us.
Back when you first started as a coordinator and your dad around, what was the reaction of kind of the rest of the coaches? You got this young new guy and he's got his dad with him, kind of helping him out.
Yeah, well, I think I want to say that he was on the other side of the ball. I think he might have been on offense at that point in time. So he was just part of the staff there. When I eventually went to Salve, the Division III school I went to, then he came along, and at that point I was the head coach. So he came along as our defensive line coach, which was great.
Yes, and so you just like having him around? Is he a great person even today, just to kind of go for advice and everything like that?
Yeah, he's a great person, yes. No, but he's a great person to go for advice, yes, 100%. So I'm serious. There's a shift that occurred in football a decent time ago where it was everybody's running similar offenses. You were in a triple option, you were in a power I type of offense, you're in a wing T, or that was pretty much it. You're doing three things. So there was that drive for the bigger, faster, stronger, and the ability to say we're all doing similar things. How do we just build better people to beat that other person? How does RX beat that O? And but there was a human element in getting that person better. Then as I was coming up, probably 5-6 years in the profession, we started to see the triple option. That Chip Kelly started to spread it out and do all the things he did. And then coaches in probably just a little bit below me, it's all scheme. It's all scheme. It all focuses on scheme. And I think those are where a lot of our conversations lie as I went through my profession over the past bunch of years. But to have a guy who was around at the time where it was about the people, is also really good to keep you anchored in the fact that I love what we're doing schematically, but can those people do it? Can those people handle it? And are those people as good as your X, as good as their O? If not, we have to try to help in those matchups or, take advantage of the matchups where we have advantages. So there's a scheme element to it, and then there's a personnel element to it. And I think the guys from that generation are just super as far as the matchup and the human element goes with that conversation of preparing each week for a game and a team for a season.
And going off of that human element, when you got here in December, you guys immediately had to go all the way up in the press box and just hunker down and get all of these guys that you're talking about. How rewarding is it now that we're in August? You're only a couple weeks away from a game, and you're working directly with all these guys that you were able to recruit.
Yeah, well, just think about that. So you have 55 guys leave this program, right? So when 55 leave, 64 new guys come in. Well, we didn't just go recruit 64 guys for those 64 guys. We recruited probably 300 guys for those 64 guys. And then from each of those positions, we were taking 4 or 5 guys and interviewing them and trying to break down the film and figure out exactly what it is. Talk to their high school coaches. That guy, we're eliminating him. Talk to a coach of the staff. Well, he's a great football player, but we're eliminating him. So you go through all of that. To get to 64 sounds like a big number, but to start before you get to 64 is a much larger number, and getting the right people here was what we needed to do. That was important. So the amount of names we went through, the amount of conversations, the amount of phone calls and film that we broke down was extreme. And then you end up just having this group of names, and they come and visit, and you do really well as they come and visit, and then after that you move the next step forward to then getting to finally get them here and see what they're really all about when you put them in the weight room and coach them. And now that you had the winter and the spring and the summer, and here we are in the fall, we might as well have been together for the past 5 years at this stage of the game, and that's a pretty cool feeling.
What was that exact process with Dylan in terms of finding a quarterback? How many quarterbacks are you looking for?
Yeah.
Are you looking for guys who ran similar systems,
Yeah.
skill set? What's the...
Yeah, so ultimately when we went out there, we were saying, what have we had success with here in the past? What does this team look like? Who's returning? Who might return? And then to find out really only Cole Potts and Tanner Morris returned on that side of the ball. So that is different. But when we go into the conversation of trying to find a quarterback, we're trying to find the guy that can, be an elite processor of information that could deliver accurate footballs on time, anticipate things, and be a leader, have leadership characteristics and qualities as well. So that was what we did, and we searched around till we found, what we found to be the greatest guy in that, and that was with Tillman. So there's a lot that went in that process. There was a lot of names on the table, and ultimately he was the guy that Coach Kennedy trusted the most, and I agreed with him as well.
How many quarterbacks actually visited or got that far into the process?
Yeah, so honestly, I don't think Dylan didn't even visit. You know that, right? Because he was still playing in a national championship game and had to make a decision, before that. So he didn't even visit. But there were other guys that we were, having conversations with. But when it ended up going in his direction, we didn't really bring a whole lot more in here. Maybe we had, I want to say, 2 or 3 other guys. But there was a lot of unknowns at that moment. Who was coming back at receiver? Was the other quarterback coming back? Are we bringing our quarterback from Holy Cross? There was a lot of things that went on behind the scenes that were, there was a lot of, balls in the air that we were juggling to try to make sure we got this right.
There's been a lot of talk about movement, and Dean Kennedy's offense is full of that. Can you speak about how the signal caller has grown this year, coming up with you to JMU, and what has impressed you about his offense?
Yeah, so I think that, he's really focused right now, as you watch some of the practices, matchups, getting people moved around, not allowing someone to just be, there he is, he's one of our better players. He only is on the left side in the X position, that's where he lives. We don't want to do that. We want to be as multiple as we can. We want to move people as much as we can. We want to get defenses to have to communicate as much as we can prior to the snap. That's all part of what we do. Did we do that 3 years ago? With Coach Smith and Coach Kennedy, we began the beginnings of it, and then that next year we took a much larger, step in that direction, and it's fun to watch, the evolution, of just how this is all playing out right now.
Coach Smith is that run game coordinator, and this running back room has been mega impressive during camp.
Yep.
Can you speak to how they've been playing and what you're looking towards in the fall with that?
Yeah, so it starts with the O-line, right, first. Football, to me, always has and always will. Start with the O-line, and it ends with the O-line. Starts with the D-line on defense, ends with the D-line on defense. And I think those are the places where we need to put a huge emphasis. So we have, I think, the best O-line staff in the country right now that is putting things together here for us to make sure that our quarterbacks are protected, but make sure we find some things in the run game that are going to be helpful for us to, get a chance to highlight what these running backs can do. You saw it and you said it. The running back room is pretty deep right now. They just got to continue to compete every single day as hard as they possibly can. We need to just continue to challenge them on all facets of their game. What they're good at, keep it strong. What they're not good at, make it stronger, and just challenge them and demand more and more and more every single day. And I love where they're at right now.
How does that quarterback room look, and is anyone separated from the rest of the back?
Yeah, I think it looks really good right now. I think that they're all, working together right now. We're not in a position to make any decisions at this moment, right? We want to continue to put our foot on the gas, and just like every other position, we're rotating guys through. Who's with the first group is all of a sudden with the third group, who's with the second group, and that's the same thing on defense. Jacob Dobbs has been with the first group and the third group and the second group and been bumping around, even had a day off in there, and that's important for us to just continue, as I stated earlier. When you talk about what we all went through in COVID, hey, we got a guy here, this is our guy, and then all of a sudden he's not there anymore. And he comes back in 2 weeks, or he comes back in a week. And I think us making sure that we continue to just mix through the different combinations, because we're going to need everybody. It's very rare that you go a whole season and you're perfectly intact. So that's the main objective of what we're trying to do.
Yeah, what's it like having Alonzo Barnett in that quarterback who kind of went through trial by fire last year? And what have you seen from him up to this point, and what does it mean to have him?
Yeah, I've seen it. I wasn't here last year, so I can't speak to that. But when I watch him and when I hear him tell his story, and when I have conversations about him of just what that was like to go through that one game and never, ever, ever get another chance, at all, I got to think that's something that's extremely, a driving force, and a big chip that he carries on his shoulder, rightfully so. So I just watch. He is a fierce competitor. He can make all the throws. He can create with his feet. I have very little worries about Alonzo, and just watching what he did over this past, winter, changing his body, in the winter and then into the spring, then through the summer, just fully committed, really doing an unbelievable job. I'm very, very, very impressed.
Why did you keep Eddie, Coach Whitley? What was it about him? And how does he fit in?
Well, first, Coach Whitley, so as we went through it, when I first got here, I started to try to reach out to coaches in this area and then talk to every player on this team. And I really wanted to talk to every player about what are we doing well? I'm coming in here. I do not want, I want to advance and accelerate this program. So give me the things we're doing well that we got to hold on to, and give me the things we're doing poorly that we got to get rid of. And then talk to me a little bit about this coaching staff, because not everybody can stay, right? And if everybody can't stay, is there anybody that's sort of untouchable in your mind? And I would say maybe 80 to 90% of guys, the first word out of their mouth was Coach Whitley. And the high school coaches was Coach Whitley. Everybody I spoke to, it came back down to Eddie Whitley. So that, to me, was an absolute no-brainer and an easy decision. I got to hang out with Eddie and meet Eddie a little more. It became clearer and clearer. I got to watch practices. I got to watch him interact with the players, and that was pretty easy decision for me.
Wanting to follow up on the quarterback battle right now. I know you're not naming a starter, but come week 1, is it one guy as quarterback, or are you possibly having the situation that maybe you're going to run 2 out there?
Could be 3, right? Who knows, right? It could be, who knows what it could be, right? Everybody does things really, really well, and a couple of guys do things at a very elite level. So we just got to see how it all continues to play out.
Yeah, in terms of math,
when it comes to the 64 guys that you brought in, what's allowed you to be successful in finding the guys that you think will succeed at this program and fit in well with it?
I think when you sit down with someone, I know what energy I'm looking for from them. I know I need them to be great football players. We need them to be great football players. I know that we need them to be excellent in the weight room. I know that we need them to be good students. And all those things we're checking on prior to. We know that we need them to be great citizens. So all those things are through background checks. But then when you sit with them, it's pretty evident if this is going to work or not, right? You see what we do at practice every day and what we're going to demand from them every day. And sometimes it just doesn't work. And you sit there with a guy and you know full well that he might be the best option at this moment, but he's probably not going to give you everything that he's got, right? And he's doing you a favor more, and you could sense that in that process. And then there's guys that understand who we are fighting hard, and maybe a little bit less talented at times. Some are more talented, but maybe a little bit less. And they break through the ceiling of their potential and just become something so different. You watched it last year with Jalen Green. You watch it with some other players in the past, that have happened here. You didn't see it coming yet, but I'll bet you those coaches could feel it coming, right? And that's what I'm looking for, is that in some of these cases, we're only spending 7 months together. I don't want it to be 7 months of, will you please practice? Will you please give us all that you got? You're coming from such a higher level, and can you please give us, your best? And those are real conversations that happen in a lot of programs, and you walk around very delicately because you don't want guys to leave or you're nervous of that, and that's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be here with people, coaches included, that love this game, that are going to give every single thing they got every single day, and will exceed all expectations and all of their potential by just constantly pouring it out every single day. That's what I'm looking for in the process. I want to be inspired by their film, but then I also want to be inspired when I sit down and talk with them. I don't want it to just be, your film's really good, and listen to the kid tell me why he's so good. I want them to just be so driven and passionate about this game like I am, and I hope our coaches are, and I know our players are. Those are the things that I look for.
Yeah, when you talk about the quarterback you got to work with last year, Matthew Sluka, he was able to run the ball at a really high level. When you talk about the quarterback group this year, are you going to try and replicate that? Well, maybe you can't replicate Sluka's production, but how's that going to work with QB rushing?
Yeah, I think you have to just wait and see. I think there's options in there, right? There's certainly options in there of guys that can run and can run really, really well, right? How much you want to do that is things that you got to consider as a staff and kind of dance through, but there's certainly advantages to the +1 quarterback run game. There's huge advantages to it. You're not playing with 10 guys, you're playing with 11, and they're playing with 11. When you read one of theirs, they're playing with 10, now you're playing with 11. So there's a lot of benefit to it. It's just a matter of at what expense, and that's what we just have to continue to dance through.
Have you played multiple quarterbacks, not because of injury, but intentionally? Have you gone that route?
Yeah, we have, and we had with just the kid we just mentioned here, Sluka. We did that as a freshman year. He'd come in on certain run packages, and then eventually he started to become more and more ready to take over. His confidence grew, his success grew, his confidence grew, his success grew, and it just kept spinning to the point that he became the guy.